it has the music pick up and then we start.
Before we go into Here's Johnny?
Yes. So it's 9 a.m. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, August 13th, 2024 Idaho Board of Commissioners meeting. And the first thing that we do is approve the agenda. So I'll make a motion that we approve an agenda that has a non-public session for employment issues, hiring an employee, and a discussion that could jeopardize or possibly a reputation, so we do that in non-public sessions. It's two non-public session
Okay.
issues. So with that, do I hear a second?
Second.
For that? And
Aye.
all in
Aye.
favor? Aye. 3-0 on approving this agenda. The next we have is approval of the minutes of August 6th.
Still
And
can't believe it's August.
I know.
we're halfway through already. Maybe before I even open the file, I remember that there's a reference to the Riggy PRV, and Riggy is spelled R-I,
I knew that was gonna
Yeah.
come up.
so if you could catch that one.
Yeah.
Where was that? I missed that.
It was, yeah, I know
item?
where it is, yeah.
It's when there's a discussion, I have
Yeah, it's in there.
a discussion with DeBois and King.
Yep.
The third bullet says a concrete structure such as, that's where it should say Riggy, R-I-G-I, which is a town in Switzerland, which almost all of the roads in Ottawa are named after towns in Switzerland. And I guess,
Oh, I see, it's spelled Reggie as opposed to Ricky.
Yeah,
Got it.
correct.
I missed that. Wow,
Yeah.
all right.
and then the only other thing I would say is, under non-public sessions where there's a vote to come out of non-public session, I think it should say that the minute is sealed,
Yes.
Okay,
that's all.
sure.
So it's just that one thing with Riggy, with one letter.
Yeah.
From Reggie to Riggy.
I think Wood's got a few.
No.
No?
I went over it
All right,
and
great.
I missed that, so.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
that one letter modification and the word sealed added, all in favor of the approval of these minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0.
Thank you.
Next we go to an approval of an operations manifest for a total of $18,106.96. So I'll make a motion that we approve this for discussion.
Second.
All right, I think it was modified too, so. Oh, that's water. Let's see. Yeah, nope, that's correct. 18,106.96.
Mhm.
So the interesting
Total.
things in this is that there is a
Mhm.
invoice for Northledge Technologies
Yep.
for work that's been done since March, actually.
Yes.
And I think I'd like to make sure that that gets brought up again. We need to discuss having a budget for IT.
IT. Yes.
So we'll talk about that when we get to probably commission's report. I'll bring it
Okay.
up. We're paying $3,396.41 to the New Hampshire retirement system.
Yeah, we're
Alright.
playing catch up, so hopefully this is the last catch up.
How
From
often
the
does
payroll.
that get paid in?
It should be paid monthly.
Oh, it's monthly, not
Yes,
quarterly.
correct.
Okay.
Another noteworthy thing is, the very last thing was a Bank of New Hampshire government loan payment of $11,500.
Mm-hmm.
And we just paid another one last week, right? That was a different one.
That, yes, this is a,
This is from last week.
this is not a check, this is an EFT. This was automatically paid out of the bank account.
Nope, Nope, this is the one that I told you was gonna be on this agenda because it was missing from the last agenda. And that you wanted to be sure to talk about it, so I included it on this agenda because it's,
For a check that
Wasn't
we wrote
reelected.
last week.
Correct.
We did it on time.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is the same one, okay.
It is.
Just making sure, okay.
Wasn't the dollar amount? That was
there was one on the water,
right, that was a $9,000 check.
yeah, so. Oh, yeah, so you are correct. This is the EFT one.
So you following
The
that?
11,000 one is on
This is
the
not a check.
operatings for E EFT.
The one we signed last week was to get it in on time for a loan for the water system. That was the
Right.
$9,000 check that
Yes.
we
Right.
signed.
Okay,
And this is one, this is
That's why she had the
EFT.
look on her face.
See at the bottom here.
You knew all
Is
along.
EFT. Right, I got no problem with that. Then what did we pay, what was different last week than this week?
What do you mean
It's
different?
a different
There's nothing
loan.
different.
It's a different
different
loan,
Yes.
okay.
The loan last week was a loan that was done, essentially the minutes from
Yep.
2018.
Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
A bizarre warrant article in my estimation.
Yes.
They were asking for $500,000 and very vague about where it was going.
Yep.
It got cut to two something.
204 or something like that, 204, yep.
Yep, for tank inspections and lining.
So that payment was the $9,000 check,
Right.
the hard copy check we signed last week.
And I
Okay.
did find the paperwork.
This is
the
another
folder.
loan
Yeah,
that gets withdrawn automatically out of the account.
yeah.
We didn't have to sign this check.
And this particular loan was for, what was the original purpose of the banknote?
It looks like it's attached to one of the truck purchases.
Okay,
What?
Well, that's the paperwork that I'm finding out for it. But someone will have to look at it, because I'm not sure 100%.
Are you talking about the,
The 11,500 one that you don't know about. It wasn't brought to your attention for this manifest, because it's automatically withdrawn. It wasn't something that you needed to come in and sign a check for.
11,000, not the tank loan's not an automatic payment.
No,
No.
we're not
that's-
talking about that.
Oh, the other one.
we
Yeah.
paid that
Which-
last
Which is
week.
the bond payment, I'm assuming.
Someone has to tell me. I'm pulling the paperwork and there's
All right.
limited amount of information that's,
So we have two separate long-term payables, obviously for the water system, which was originally 204,000. And then this one, when I look at it, there's only a balance left of, 26,000 or so. I guess this was for a truck. We took another
It-
loan out for a
from
truck.
what I see, it's attaching it to the 2019 truck.
We do have a loan for the 2019 truck.
Okay. So, all right, so that's why when I was trying to, what you sent me, I was reading through all the terms of that 204,000 loan, and I'm thinking, there's no way after 5 years we're down to a 26,000 balance. So I was getting like,
Yeah,
But
yeah,
another thing I was really sort of mind-boggled about the 204,000 was the way the bank calculates interest. It's really a rather unfortunate formula. I'm sure it's standard, but it's not a standard amortization formula. Nonetheless, is it possible on any of our long-term notes to get from the banks, to the best ability that they're able to project, an amortization schedule of those loans until they're paid off, so we can plan accordingly going forward, knowing that 204,000, they said the interest will change. It's sort of a variable interest loan, but based on what's known right now, there is a way of looking forward.
Yeah, I can ask them for that.
Okay, I just think that'd be very helpful for our budgeting purposes when that happens.
The truck payment should be paid off next year if it's only 24,000.
correct.
Yeah,
You're
there's
right.
only 26,
Mhm.
balance this statement. Oh, yeah, and then when we pay that, it's gonna go down by another, what's the principal?
I made a $7,000 principal reduction on that loan at the very beginning.
Ah,
So it's not gonna come out exactly like the amortization schedule.
okay. That's fine, I guess I'm not as concerned with this one, because you're saying this will probably be, paid off in 2025.
Yep.
So it's really the big 204,000 loan, what our principal stands at, and looking forward year payments and interest.
So you just want the
Amortization schedule,
Okay.
yeah. Understanding that it's a variable interest loan and things are gonna change, but banks.
Oh, come on. Love when you hate.
Any other questions about the manifest for total of
The operating manifest is 18,106.96 total, yeah, including the
all in
debit
favor
and
of
EFT.
approving this manifest?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0. We move to the water manifest of $38,244.51. And there's a June and July bill from Simply Water for $17,161.43.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the big one.
And do we have all of the, are they outstanding hookup cards? Water connection cards? Do we know, should we be checking that against this invoice?
Yes, that's been ongoing. I have a whole compiled list of what I've logged to record. You're talking about like the CRFs or something like that?
CRV.
CRV.
Or something.
I'm trying.
That's a car, sorry.
Oh, good, I'm not the only one then.
The curb stop valve, whatever that is.
Yeah,
So we have documentation for every curb stop valve that was done, so they're all caught up.
who's all caught up?
Simply Water has given us the curb stop valves for every new curb stop that was installed.
Oh, I don't know about that.
That's what I'm saying, is
Okay.
that before we pay Simply Water bills, we need to make sure that we have all the documentation.
All right,
And are
someone
we
has to
actually
review
getting-
all this with me.
Are we actually getting enough time? Do we get to see the bill? See whether we have all the connection cards before it's in front of us to actually release a check? I'm looking at systems here.
I'm looking at the check itself, trying to, I mean, there's a lot of different line items on it, but you're concerned about ones
I
that,
know there's one specific statement about having the curb stop and the cards put in for the one on Jungfrau that they had to look for. So it seems that the bill should, I didn't,
well, yeah, so, so there's look for, I'm just looking for curb stops and water hookups.
yes, this stuff marked for capital reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Locate and dig up gate valve clusters, test for operation, but but I think what you're saying, Mark, we need to take a look at the bill and correlate that with permits for water hookups and
And-
any other open work orders?
And work orders.
Yeah. Okay. So without having the work orders in hand,
See, now what we're getting to it is that we need to really look at this. There's an issue with, if I told you the street address of the house that's being built that has the driveway that goes from Hutwell to the lot on Burn, you know which one I'm talking about.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
If I said 22 Hutwell, would you know that that was the lot?
Yes,
You would.
I would.
Would you know if I said 22 Hutwell, that was the one I was talking about?
No,
Right.
I probably wouldn't, but now that you said that it goes over to Burn, now I get
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Because you recognize
Yes,
it because it's
yes.
unusual that way.
Right.
Okay, so that lot, put in its $10,000 for the water hookup at the early spring.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the first customers I talked to in the office when you were new to the job on the phone. Ray, I think the guy's
I
name
don't
is.
remember.
So this is the issue, is this is all being done out of memory, which is what I'm getting at here, is that the contractor called and was wondering where the water hookup was, because this was all paid in the March-April time period. The engineer approved the water hookup in around June 21st.
With the label of 22 Hutwell, is that what you're saying? Okay, yeah.
And then it is what happens after that.
Yeah, there's a work order for that I found.
You found it, okay. And you saw the emails?
I saw it all and responded to it, but I do have a work order that was done and sent, and it's attached to the application.
If you remember, I mentioned, and maybe it's more than mentioning that it has to be done, is it seems to me that we need, as a board, because it's our responsibility ultimately, that we need to be able to see work orders,
Mm-hmm.
that we need, I was calling it a dashboard,
Yeah,
that we see what has come in as applications for water hookups. And this can extend to other things, but we'll keep it on water hookups. And where is the engineer as far as approving it? Where is the work order to actually do the hookup? And what is the schedule? Because what you haven't experienced yet, and you haven't either, is we can get into big jams with people that have built houses. And if the water hookup is delayed, and it appears to be because of the village, then the speculator of the building of a $600,000 house starts threatening the taxpayers with damages because they can't use the house they just built.
right.
And I have seen other boards have to hire contractors in panic situations to run hundreds of feet of water main at great expense. And I'm trying to
Not do that.
not put any of us through that,
Right,
including
right.
especially the water users, taxpayers. So, I think we need to have an Excel spreadsheet that is on the OneDrive of the village that the commissioners can access from anywhere, and shows new water hookups when the application came in, where the engineer is in approving it, where it is as far as a work order to the water operator, and what is the schedule for it to be connected. So that's great that you found the,
Yeah, but it's labeled 22 Hutwell. There's no mention of burn on it at all.
I had to bring that up because you wouldn't have recognized it.
That's an unusual
Absolutely not.
situation.
But you would recognize it by describing it.
Right.
That's part of what the system has to cover, is that the addresses don't conjure up the picture. It needs to be all in front of us as a document as to where any step of this process is for any given hookup.
Okay, so the process flow, if I understand it, a property owner submits a water hookup application with a $10,000 check, at which point we need to turn it over to the engineer to evaluate whether a hookup can be done.
It has to get approved first. The application always gets approved by the board first.
Okay, so application, board, engineer,
You're correct.
all right. And then it's a binary choice, comes back, no, you can't do it, that ends that, we give him his $10,000 back.
And we've
Yes,
done that, yeah,
you can do it, at which point
We do a work order.
we do a work order.
correct,
That then goes to Simply Water?
correct.
Yep.
Okay, at which point they need to schedule the hookup,
Correct.
and when it's completed, let us know.
well, yeah. Technically, it's usually the bill.
And so just to give you an idea how it works, if it stays verbal, it can be messy, is that Ian was here last week.
Yeah,
And Ian asked the question, do you have any outstanding water hookups? Well, here we are from memory. And Jennifer answered, we have one on Hotwell, it
Correct.
turns out,
yep.
with no street number. So I don't know whether we're talking about 22 Hotwell, which is this particular,
And it seems Ian's questioning it is as
well,
well.
no,
so-
hold on, don't get that far. But there's another Hotwell, 27?
Yeah,
27 has a hookup, right? And I don't know that from memory.
no,
That we
because
have
that is, I
See,
think
so
that one's
pointing out how
old.
Yeah,
we need this.
Yeah, mhm.
So Ian leaves the meeting hearing that,
There's
that there's no water
other
hookup.
outstanding water hookups
And-
that we know of, though.
And I emailed him when Bernie Quinn called me saying, what's going on with my water hookup? From
On Brown.
June was when I met him in front of the lot to
And he's
talk.
22, right?
22.
Okay.
So, yes, so then Ian says, well, you know, I'll check to see whether I'm making a mistake that there is a a work order. And that's where that communication stopped until we got to today's meeting to go through all this.
And I seem to recall that there was, so somehow the ball got dropped on the number 22 Aspen. That was the one on the big hill.
Yep.
Turned out that there was no,
No
you couldn't
water
do a
main
water
there,
hookup,
right.
yeah. Okay, it seems like a simple spreadsheet would fix that we can review, I don't know, once a month or at every board meeting, it doesn't matter, it's a matter of, it's a running list.
Right.
And if it's filled in and up to date.
Okay, I need to add to this, because according to the water hookup, you have to access this property, which requires a driveway permit, correct?
In order to,
If you were going to try to access and do the water hookup and the whole bit, it says you need the driveway permit on the ordinance. The driveway or permit looks to be something that has to be taken care of first before you go into a water hookup.
this is a good point.
Yes.
But it gets into another discussion of, in order to do a water hookup,
Right.
the water line to the house has to be already installed, which means it already has to be inspected by the water operator. And I'm beginning to believe that it also needs to be inspected by us before the water operator gets there. That's to say that the pipe is down, that there's a 1-inch pipe, we need to clarify that for ourselves, that it's down 6 feet, that it's bedded in sand all the way from the edge of the road to the foundation of the house where it enters the foundation of the house.
That part is to turn the curb stop on.
I'm getting to that, is that
It's not necessarily required that the,
line be installed.
yes.
This is the answer to your question, you gotta let me get there.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Right, typically they cut the driveway, they typically put it down the driveway, although they don't have to, but it's clearing one line.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be people cleared just enough trees to get the driveway and the house in, now they take everything off the lot, even though the zoning ordinance says
You can't do
you
that.
can't do that. That's to be another issue to be discussed. But they would run the water line, inspect it, and then we would hook onto the water line, and they had to be there before it was turned on to make sure that it wasn't damaging anything because they didn't finish the plumbing in the house. But we also install the water connector and leave it shut off.
Yeah.
Here's a case of 47 Hotwell,
Yeah.
The infamous 47.
where we have a water hookup and we're being accused of delaying the water hookup, which is causing the delay in the driveway. And we have the hookup there already, it's been there for months. We start charging as if they're using water, even though there's no water line, no house. That's our rules also. Once we put the curb
Curb
stop
stop.
there, now they're paying the annual water fee.
Yes.
So, to answer Jennifer's question, do we need to have a driveway there? Does a driveway need to be permitted before we put a water hookup, shut off, no connection?
No.
Well, if you read through the ordinance, it basically tells people you need to have a driveway.
The water ordinance,
The
Correct.
water hookup ordinance.
water hookup, the curb stop, is to the edge of the property
Yeah,
from the main.
yeah.
This is true.
So.
What she's pointing out was what
we
the
can-
ordinance says, not what physically happens.
Yeah,
Right?
so you
Correct.
don't actually have to have a driveway to have the hookup put in, because that's in the right-of-way area.
But she's saying the water ordinance says that
That you
to
need,
do a
that you
water hookup,
basically
you do
need
have to
to
have a
take
driveway.
care of your driveway first.
Physically, you're describing, no, you don't have to, and we have done it.
Yes.
Yeah, because I know we have
But
curb
that's separate
stops.
from what she's saying is what the language in the water ordinance says,
Is that the water ordinance?
Yeah,
Okay,
not the driveway ordinance.
okay.
So we're talking about trying to approve a manifest here.
We're a little offside.
But we had to cover this because we're paying, it's a matter of whether we're holding this check as we check work orders or not,
Right,
which had to lay out everything that has to be done to check work orders, which keeps going.
yeah.
So, backing all the way back up to approving the manifest, do you want to approve this check and pay it? And start checking work orders, or do you want to check some
Well,
work
I
orders?
check the work orders in doing this whole thing, because I need to
See
outline
all the
what I
checks.
need to
Yeah.
charge back to.
right.
So the work orders are being accounted for.
Right. I see the
But
checks
you were
on it.
talking about cards in the beginning of this.
Work orders against hookups, and do we have the card for that hookup?
Okay, I can't
Specifically.
answer that.
That's what I'm after.
Okay.
What do you want to do with this check?
Hold it until we can sign it, but we can hold it until we have a chance to look at,
Work orders
to make
against,
sure that, well, the work
Hookups.
orders Jen has already checked.
I've
against
already
hookups.
checked.
But we
Yes.
can look to make sure that we have the information downstairs for the card, and that a copy of the card is upstairs in that book.
Do you agree with that? Do you follow that?
No, I'm the new guy here, but I'm gonna defer to Nancy. She's the
Yeah,
expert,
I'm
and
gonna go with that also.
Yeah.
That's-
Dinah and I
think
spent a
that's what-
lot of time putting that book together.
all right. But I think if we can put together a process flow, not only for ourselves, but for the average VDOE person who's
Yes.
putting up a new house or whatever, so we can understand all the steps that need to be done. But for us, obviously, the steps that need to be done, the dates that it happens, and guess what? The most important thing at the end, everything been done correctly, that they're now on the customer lists, so we bill them.
As soon as the curb stop goes in, they are a customer.
Right, but that assumes that we put them on the customer list. That's still another
Well,
step we
she's-
have to do.
Ah, yes,
You're right, that's what I'm saying.
okay.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. And it's a step that's been done, because I'm sometimes wonder if there are some people out there who are not on our customer list. It's been known to
So
happen
right now, we have a
before.
motion on the floor to approve this manifest for $38,244.51. I'm gonna amend that to say, and we're going to hold the Simply Water check until we get to verify the work orders for hookups against the documentation being submitted by the water operator. So we're gonna sign it, and we're just gonna hold it until we
No
hold that
problem.
check. All in favor of approving that manifest?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0 on $38,244.51.
May I ask a question?
Mhm.
It sounds like on the work order is where you put in how much it costs to put the water line in.
They do, I don't.
Well,
They
Ian-
check- they-
Ian
yes.
is there, okay. So that's your documentation for what you're going to charge back the capital reserve fund
Yes,
for.
and
Okay.
that's the documents that I've been pulling and keeping separate aside.
Right.
Right, it
At
might
the
be helpful
office.
on your dashboard to have like 2 more columns saying charge back and.
Well, there is an existing
Oh,
spreadsheet that we
Okay.
have yet to review.
Right.
Okay, good.
So,
All right, thank you.
yeah, so. But that conjures up another whole set of
Uh-huh.
issues that I have, yeah. Okay,
So
Let's move
DPW report, we'll move on to that at 9:30 exactly. Jeff is with 2 people from FEMA and 2 people from New Hampshire Homeland Security reviewing road conditions and ditches and culverts from the storm of July of 2023. And he'll be with them all day. That was supposed to be a 4-day project starting yesterday. And late Friday, information came in that it was changing from Monday to Tuesday. It was going from 4 days to 1 day.
Wow.
It wasn't very clear as it was going back and forth exactly how that was happening, so. At 7:30 this morning, there were 4 people waiting in the driveway with the 2 DPW guys ready to head out and start looking at 200 culverts and 40 roads of ditching. And they were gonna go look at presidential view first, and I told them to bring them to the summit overlook where they could get a bird's eye view of what the terrain really looks like here.
Yeah.
So on the list, when we did our tour, if you remember, the water operator talked about that cement cover on the Jungfrau pit.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
the
I
old-
did get to talk to Jeff about this morning before they headed out, just so that, because it's a safety issue, not to delay in letting him know that we want to fill that, and that he should check to see whether there's any plumbing remaining, that the PIV is probably gone, but then he could reuse that cement cover as a header on a culvert.
Did that create an issue with snow plowing last winter?
Well,
That's
it's
the main reason why we're.
Snowplow pushed the cover off the hole that it was trying to cover.
right,
And then the
then,
water operator came along and almost disappeared.
yeah.
Oh, that's right, that's
Right.
right. No,
Wow.
yeah, right.
right, he slipped
Did not
into,
know.
That's
this.
right.
Yes.
Oh, when we had the power outage and they were doing
Yes.
work up there with the
Yes.
other, like,
Yeah.
Jeff says that's not the only time that he saw that cover get moved, and
Yeah.
he moved it back.
Wow, okay.
yeah.
So-
Oh, absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
Bad
now.
idea from the get-go. and
yeah, we gotta get that filled.
Finally, because of the tour, we finally found out about it.
Right. So it's bad for our equipment, but even worse for a
So-
person.
Jeff is gonna work on it this
Right,
week?
he knows about that, and he
All right.
knows it's a safety issue,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
that should move up on his list. The second one is, on St. Moritz, we need the street address of this. I sent a picture of it, and I'm not sure the picture had enough of a background to know. But, when you used to live on Jacoro View,
Mhm.
there was a house down the hill
Uh-huh.
from you that is actually on St. Moritz.
Yes,
That house likes to keep the yard tidy, and that house is
Mhm.
on a hill that slopes dramatically towards St. Moritz.
Mhm.
And the easiest thing for them to do evidently is to rake downhill. And there are branches that are probably 1 inch in diameter and probably 4 to 6 feet long that end up in a bundle, and that gets pushed down into the ditch. And the DPW guys are saying that's threatening the paved road because it will create a dam when the leaves build up. And they would like us to write a letter to the owner of that property, and possibly include the picture to say, he needs to remove that he shouldn't be filling our ditch and threatening the road by creating possible dams with his lawn debris or yard debris.
So the ditch is at the bottom of this,
Mhm.
So his house is
So,
way up on the top
yes.
of the hill, a long
Yeah.
driveway.
right?
And he rakes the whole thing down, and then there's the paved road with a ditch.
Yep.
And he's filling the road for about 6 feet with
It ends up in the ditch.
in the
Mhm.
ditch, and
Whatever
when the
he's
leaves
putting
come,
down
it's gonna dam up, and the water's gonna come
Yep.
and eat away under the road, paved road. and
Okay.
Now it's
Yep.
big money.
Mhm.
So,
So can we?
I'm sure you don't know the street address off the top of your head, so we can,
The guys might know.
It's in the 20s.
I'll go look it up in the maps.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm making a motion that we send the owner of that property a letter saying that he needs to remove the debris from the ditch and that he shouldn't be doing his yard work that way, or worse to that effect.
Second.
All right. Are we able to also put in words to the effect that if we, our DPW department, has to go up and clean it out themselves, that we can charge them for the labor, and the man hours and the equipment hours?
I'll have to come up with a RSA, but there is a law that says you can't fill the ditch line with debris from your property. And so that's statewide. It's not a Idlewise specific thing. It's a state law.
Right, but if we end up having to do the work, because he or she continues to keep violating that RSA, it's gonna cost us money. Can we not pass that cost along to the homeowner? And maybe, one bill like that will be deterrence from ever letting that happen again.
We'll have to check the RSAs to see what
Yeah. And that means
remedies
monitoring
it gives
the
you.
property to see if he's still doing it. And,
I
And
don't know.
whatnot.
In general, when people violate rules and regulations, if they're fined or whatever, if it impacts their wallet,
Right.
they'll know better next
Oh,
time.
yeah. Yeah, and he's not the only one.
Oh,
I'm sure of that.
That much I'll guarantee you.
that's
He's not the only
and-
one.
And that is not the only issue.
Okay.
There's other issues that are costing us money because of homeowner negligence.
Right.
So we'll write into the letter that we're looking into, that's possible.
Right.
Okay. So, should we vote on approving the writing of that letter?
Well, you just approved that something will get worked
We
out.
approved that a
Yes.
letter would be written.
Correct.
I think you said and then went into a discussion, we didn't say anything.
Of what we could include in the letter, yeah.
I think, after we approved it, I then asked, can we add words to the effect that he'll be charged, we'll pass along the cost to him if we end up cleaning it.
Yeah, but Nancy wants to review.
Right, she wants to
Yeah.
research the RSA.
I wanna look at the RSAs.
So we can quote what the New Hampshire says regarding
Correct.
putting
Right. So
debris
quote-
into ditches,
quote the
road ditches.
RSA.
Correct.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're approving the letter.
Quoting
to go-
RSAs
Yeah.
is
You gotta
always a
work on
good
it?
thing. Yes.
Okay.
We'll work on the draft.
So, I think we should do a review of the fuel logs. Possibly next week if we can, of the DPW.
I haven't received anything other
Yeah,
than what
we
was
wanna
submitted
ask
months
them.
ago.
Be a good time, if the grader comes back, it would be good to know what the fuel rate consumption was for all these months without the grader, and then what does it look like with the grader back? Doing road
Okay, I
work,
see. Yeah.
as opposed to,
Do we have any update as to when the grader is coming back, or is that?
I haven't heard any.
Okay, so without Jeff, we don't have any update there, but that's okay.
So that, anything else on DPW?
Do we have a, I know the last time we did fuel logs was many years ago. I know they haven't been looked at for years. Do we have the template? Or to put the fuel log together? So that we could check, because you wanna check the last couple of times we've gotten the tank filled.
I haven't seen anything, Nancy.
And then check the logs that the guys keep for what they use the fuel on, and it gets specific by what truck or what piece of equipment is getting fueled on the list. And I know that that book list is in DPW too. So I didn't know do we have a starting point?
I haven't seen those templates
Years.
since, what, 2012?
13 probably,
It
yes.
was never
Yes,
reviewed
wow.
last year.
And I
Correct.
guess we
It was
need
never
to,
mentioned.
correct.
Never done.
Correct, it hasn't been done in years.
So we're rebuilding all systems.
So we want to rebuild it.
Yeah. So, it's a matter of finding an old template
Well, it might give us a good guide, or we can start fresh, you know?
So that's on our list, is the,
So we should find the template. If it still works, why reinvent the wheel, but start anew if there's a gap.
Right.
Because we're not gonna know going back a year or two or more.
so we'll take a
Right.
week to see what we can find on that. and
Yes.
Talk about that again next week.
Yep.
So that should go on the agenda under DPW for next week is the fuel logs, we call it.
Mm-hmm.
So at 9:40, we'll see, there's no scheduled appearances, so we have bullets under the administrator's report at 9:40. The first one here is simply water billing for emergency shut-offs, 34 into Lake and Circle and Middle Shore, 3 Middle Shore.
Yeah, these are the ones that I wanted to review with you guys, because these are what appears to be contractors that the owners had hired to do work, and they damaged curb stops and whatnot, and Ian had to go in and do fixes, so in turn we will build. So there was a discussion at some point about billing
The
the
homeowners.
homeowners
Mm-hmm.
back for this work.
So I remember into Lake and Circle, that's where the big driveway work was.
Yes.
3 Middle Shore, contractor hit the water line. Seemed to remember the contractor's name but didn't know the address.
Right.
And the contractor calls the water operator directly.
Correct.
And here's another system that needs to be approved on is, we don't want to delay the water operator from going
Well,
out
it's
in
an
emergency.
emergency.
Yeah, not an
But
emergency.
we want to know, we don't want to find out way after the fact like this, who the contractor was and how to bill for it.
Right.
Well, I don't think we should be billing the contractor, I think it,
I think we should be billing the
billing the
homeowner,
homeowners.
Right.
and whether they can get the money back from the contractor is, that's
Their
their
problem.
issue,
Correct.
not ours.
And here's the contractor's name that I remember. And this one doesn't have a contractor's name.
Do we know what kind of work was being done on these properties?
On the Into Lake and
Emergency.
Circle
I don't know.
one, I do, because I happen to be walking Hank down there when this was all going on.
Hank nosed it out, huh?
Yep.
This one, I had no idea about, other than at the time, I remember the contractor's name being mentioned. So, you're just looking for approval to invoice the
Property
owners
owners.
to
Correct.
properties.
Yep.
Right.
So that's a motion I'll make, is that we approve the invoicing of the owner of 3 Middle Shore Drive, and we approve the invoicing of the owner of 34 Interlake and Circle for emergency turn-off services by the water operator due to work that they were having done on the system.
Second.
Aye.
3-0?
Aye.
3-0 on
Excellent.
that.
Thank you.
The second bullet you have is a driveway permit application of water hookup for
Yep.
42 Burn.
Oh, a new one. It's a new one.
42
Well,
burn.
The driveway's new, so there's been a lot of back and forth with this. So that's why I brought up about the driveway being mentioned in the water ordinance, so, yeah. But they were missing, when they first submitted their water application, they were missing documents for that as well. So it took some time to get everything organized. I believe we have everything,
Okay.
but again, this is still something that I need to get
Yes.
more up to speed on and whatnot, so.
Still
So
new.
everything is here. That I believe everything is here, but again, this is obviously something that the board approves first before I can instruct
42
Nick
burn.
to
Where's that in relation
go
to?
move forward and,
Back toward the,
So you know where 47 is?
well, that's Hutwell.
Yep.
This one's on burn.
This one's on burn.
So she is, your house is 30,
Mm-hmm.
42 is heading
Closer to Sarnan.
east.
Okay, closer to Sarnan, yeah,
Uh-huh.
okay.
Yep.
all right.
and it's on the north side of the road.
All right.
I can't
I
picture.
just drove that road recently, I'm just trying to picture it,
Yeah.
okay.
I have roughly the area, I can't picture exactly which house this is, or if there is a house there yet, right?
It's just a,
So here's a $200
That's for the
application for
driveway,
the
yeah.
driveway.
And there is a 10,000 there for the water.
$200 check, here's the driveway application.
all right, so, this is a perfect example to learn by, okay? So, okay, driveway permit, okay, so they have 90 days to start construction, a year to complete it. Okay, no problem. But then we go to the water hookup, you're saying that can,
Move forward.
that can happen concurrently up to the
Yes.
curb stop?
Yes,
It's just they can't go from the curb stop to the house, obviously, until that
correct, until the house
house is
exists.
there, okay,
Correct.
all right.
Because we do have vacant lots that have curb stops and are billed as water users, even though nothing has ever been built on the lot.
Well, sometimes you don't time it correctly.
So this is gonna show you exactly where the house is. It's on the corner of Sonnet. Uh-huh. It's where trees are being cut.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And here again, it's a septic
Yep.
design, it's
Mapping.
not showing
Yeah.
you. This is the issue we have to
Yep.
fix is.
So we need to find out what the
See, they see
grade of the road
topos,
is.
they see topos on a septic design, and they think that's showing you, and it's not showing you the cross-section to show where the negative grade is.
Right, and that's where it's supposed to be drawn out.
Correct.
Not,
And not,
Which is where
nobody
they
Right.
ever
always
fills
say see
it out.
attached.
right, and
Right.
see
Yeah.
attached does
Yeah.
not
This is-
work.
This
Yep.
is the flaw in the application.
Mhm.
Yes.
Rose Drive.
And does it show the driveway actually on Burn?
Yes, the driveway here. Even though it's right on the corner of Burn and Sarnan, the driveway's right there. So I don't think there's much grade there. Pretty flat, as I recall,
It actually slopes downhill
to the house.
off Burn
Off
Drive.
Burn.
It's a downhill slope, so
We're gonna have to look for the markings, because the only markings that I know that would access this lot are on Sarnan. So we'll have to go looking for the spot, so we're gonna have to inspect this one. Well, we have to inspect all of them, but.
Yeah.
and the drawing doesn't show the footage of the driveway entrance from the corner pin. Although it looks like it's well over 15 feet. But
Yes,
the
it
drawing-
does appear to be far enough, but that's something that we'll have to look at when we do the inspection.
So we can't approve this driveway permit without
What is CMP?
looking at it, right?
Corner marking pin?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that's definitely more than 15 feet. But still, yeah, we need to take a look at it. But at least that's an easy, unlike the undeveloped lots we looked at before. Is this it? Is this it? See, it's a corner lot.
So
piece of
now to
cake.
Jennifer's point, if the language of the ordinance says that we can't approve the water hookup without the driveway ordinance, we now say we have to go look at this. And this may not be an issue to approve, but we can't pass that on to the engineer for modeling until
Correct.
we approve
Till we
this
approve
according to
this.
our own ordinance.
All
I
right.
wanna find that in the ordinance.
Two, also,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause.
Yeah, I don't think we can
I'm
read
not- I'm
our
not-
own ordinances too many times.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm not familiar with that being required.
All right.
Like I said, I know that there's vacant lots that we've done hookups for.
Oh, yeah, you definitely have, that's for
Right.
sure.
So how could they have done that if,
I don't know.
yeah,
I guess
yeah,
we really,
yeah, we're gonna have, but like I said, that's where we're gonna
Not
have to look at
reading.
that.
But this one's still pretty straightforward. It's a simple inspection. It sounds to me
for the
like,
driveway.
for the driveway, it doesn't sound like there's gonna be an issue approving it, but we need to do our inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And this house is not gonna be elevated,
Correct.
so the probability of it passing the engineer's test is high.
High.
So we'll have to schedule ourselves to go look at this driveway.
Yeah, and I also wanna, when we get it, I have it in my commissioner's report, we need to set, a time to look at Grimsell. The homeowner, it's one that we,
We've already been there.
yes, but the pins, the markings and the driveway was too close to the,
Right.
and he says that he has remarked
Oh, okay.
where the driveway's going
To be.
to be moved to be compliant, so we need to set that one up too. So there'll be at least 2 driveways to look at that we'll need to schedule.
So that'll be the third time you and I have been out to
Uh-huh.
there, and you've been there once already.
Grimsville
It'll be the
once,
second
yep.
time for
Yep.
you.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be one inspected driveway. Did this come off theirs?
Yeah,
I'm
it did.
sorry. Okay, so that was item B under administrator's report. Item C is checks for Northway operations account. So I'll make a motion that Jennifer gets checks for the new Northway checking account.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
And that's administrative. See checks, how about water clips and fetch. So before we leave administrator's report, I'm gonna make a motion that Jennifer asks Northledge Technologies for a budget proposal for next year for an IT contract.
Are we on commissioners?
Nope, I'm doing
Okay.
this under administrators.
Oh, okay.
Just, if we ask them for it now, they can, we're not rushing them next year during budget
Okay,
season to come
but
up
they,
with the
they
numbers.
may wanna review, what specifics
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot, so.
This might go back and forth, so I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to start the
Right.
ball rolling. So I
Okay.
just want you to make a call or email and say,
Yep,
would like to budget
yeah,
for 2025.
Right.
yeah,
And just as a memory refresh, this is the outfit that helped us when everything went south back in February, March
Yes.
timeframe.
Yes. So if it wasn't seconded, then I'll second your motion and say aye.
Aye.
3-0 on asking Northledge for a proposal for 2025. I think everybody agrees that we don't want, we're out of the volunteer business.
Yes.
Profit and loss statements, the state of QuickBooks. How are we doing with that? Do you need more resources to, I don't know where we are with paychecks, getting paychecks information into QuickBooks?
it was just completed really last week,
So there you got that, huh?
yeah.
Good. And what were the other things that were holding up a possible full-blown profit and loss report?
I have no idea.
The,
Paychecks was the big thing, I think.
yeah, payroll was the big thing, and the second one was to make sure that the 2024 warrant articles are added to the chart of accounts. So we can make sure that's done so that a profit and loss can be put together by the end of the week for next week.
And Jennifer would have no experience with warrant articles going into QuickBooks, having never done New Hampshire municipal stuff before.
Correct.
That's not typical.
We'll
QuickBooks stuff.
spend some time.
Okay.
So every warrant article that was approved for 2024, you're saying a new expense line item needs to be added to the chart of accounts?
The ones that are outside of the budget. So we raised the money for the cabana.
Right.
Well, that is outside the budget. That gets charged to the warrant article.
Okay.
But QuickBooks has to know
But
what,
QuickBooks needs to know
Right.
that.
It's still an expense
What line
account,
item?
but what's that?
QuickBooks says what warrant article.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, yeah, right. You got to add it to the chart of accounts. But
Right.
I'm just wondering when you get down, you could look at revenues received, expenses per budget, and then net proceeds, whatever's left over, and then below that is warrant article expenses, or I don't know. I've got to take a look and see how it's configured myself to understand it.
They show them an old one that's been,
Uh-huh.
so there's warrant articles from previous years that are
So
still
there's
paid.
warrant articles.
Yep,
So you see your budget
yep,
and then the warrant articles.
okay.
This obviously is from
Right.
last year.
So it still comes up to total expenses.
Mhm.
Okay. That's fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
That works.
And you cleverly name the chart, that account, the warrant article number and the year that it passed.
Yes.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yes, because
I was just wondering if at the bottom line, there was one line, net ordinary income before warrant articles, warrant article expenses, net income. But there is,
No.
it's all, okay. That's fine.
No, actually, it gets treated just as if it's a line item in the budget
right.
as far as an account in the chart.
Right.
Okay. And I think everything else in that area will be done in the non-public session. So at 9:57, we'll move to Commissioners' report. So the FEMA thing changes every week. And I'll back up and say that we got a warning from some agency about Hurricane Debbie possibly dumping 7 inches of rain on us
Mm-hmm.
a few days before Debbie actually arrived in New England. Did you see that? Did you happen to see that email? It had charts, it had maps of the path of the storm and the amount of water. If you haven't seen it, I only bring it up because one of the things it said to municipalities such as us was to go out and take pictures, which I thought I had never seen anything come from any agency to the village saying there's a storm coming, go out and take pictures of what your roads and key situations look like now. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that pictures turned out to be a big thing with FEMA. When FEMA had inspectors here last spring, in February, I didn't know FEMA had inspectors coming, even though I was on the board, because not much information was transparent to the
Shared.
entire board, never mind to the taxpayers and voters. But anyway, last week's FEMA meeting had them bringing up pictures of the paved roads as they were in February of last year, which showed that the shoulders had been repacked with 1.5-inch gravel. But it showed the asphalt was damaged by undermining and erosion from the storm. I was out taking pictures and had Jeff outlining where the FEMA documents had said they had documented pavement damage last year. And Jeff outlined more roads that had edges damaged. But where did they get damaged? That's the key. FEMA says they're only looking to reimburse 75% of damages that happened in July of last year. Not what happened after July, compounded by the fact that it didn't get fixed after July, and more storms came that didn't rate FEMA's classification. So they were saying, we only want to reimburse for the asphalt that is showed damaged in the pictures that we have in February. But then they went on to say, if you want, we will estimate the cost of fixing all of the asphalt damage, which was a huge amount of work, starting with Jeff painting where it was they could get contractors to bid for it. It's like, if I had known that, that was a couple of weeks of work driving around, looking at the stuff, taking my own pictures, sending it to them.
Yep.
And then they'd back up enough to say, none of this is FEMA's fault. What I'm now understand is every community really needs to have picture documentation of what all of the assets look like before a major storm happens. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And we now know that they want GPS coordinates of all the culverts. Well, we'll be giving them GPS coordinates of all the culverts. Did we capture the GPS coordinates of all the culverts? It's like, do we have a database of the coordinates of all the culverts?
Not from last July.
No, we stuck these metal stakes in the ground, put these tag numbers on it. We didn't do it, the previous boards did it, which those things were all crumpled up by snow plows burying them. So what I'm getting at is, the more I talk to FEMA each week, the more their staff has changed from the time the storm happened several times. So not only do I not know anything about what happened last year, is the people I'm talking to every week in a conference call, which is 4 or 5 of them on Zoom, they weren't there as the state and FEMA employees to know what Ida Weiss was reporting and what happened on the ground. Even the inspectors that came out in March are not the inspectors that are here now. So, there's a huge lesson to learn here, and I don't know if we'll ever have the time to document this correctly, but I now understand to do FEMA, when a storm happens, you have to be recording everything that you're doing. Going out and taking pictures of the major damage, but taking pictures of the minor damage, even though you're up to your eyeballs in alligators, you can't overlook things that are gonna cost you if you don't report it, because you're in turmoil.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it is an emergency at the time. There's ambulances that may have to get through closed roads and that kind of stuff.
So are you talking about documenting what it looks like prior to damage? As opposed to then identifying that there's now damage?
Right, what would have been, what they are going on is pictures they took in February, and
I saw these pictures and it really couldn't document anything because it was snow. A lot of it was snow covered. You couldn't really see
that was the case that Jeff
anything.
made to me when he drew new lines and said, this was done in February when there's no snow. And then Monique brought up pictures of the exact roads and showed that in February there was snow off the edges of the road, but
see.
the pavement and 4
Okay.
inches of the shoulders were
boy.
visible, and clearly
February of this year?
February
Yep.
of this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh,
So that could be something that we need to get a, not necessarily, well, in essence, a policy, not a, a work policy, so that it's some random times, whether it be quarterly or whatever, that we are, and we can do it as a board, taking some pictures of where, so that we can have that documentation for historical reasons. And then if any of the storms do become FEMA eligible, because sometimes you don't know that for another couple of months after the storm happened, will have relatively new or recent pictures, you know? So it could be more of a,
It sounds like a lot to take on.
of
It
a,
is.
of
Tell you
a,
that.
it is,
Yeah.
it
It
is,
is.
but
It's a
we
lot to
have,
take on if you don't do it.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
Sounds like
right,
it.
and it's,
A
it's.
lot of money is what I'm getting at.
Exactly, and the district can lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
That because
Is going
stuff
to.
was, and is gonna lose a lot of money because stuff was not properly documented prior to those storms. So this might be something that the board needs to start working, you know? And it's
Yes,
not
we-
something that's gonna happen next week,
No.
but, you know,
Well,
putting some,
So we have purchased 20 truckloads plus,
Mhm.
because they bought some more. And one of the questions they had is, where did that go?
right,
And so I want to make a sheet for you folks to know that like a cubic yard of 1.5 inch gravel, how much surface area does that cover? If you lay down 3 inches. If you take a cubic yard, right, 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet, imagine a cubic yard, and spread it on a road 3 inches thick,
Yeah.
deep, that's 100 feet, square feet. Roads are 22 feet wide, so you get a picture of how much. So we did 20 of those. Do we have documentation of where those went? Well, they filled potholes. They didn't have the grader. So
Right.
they're filling potholes. They're not filling the pothole, they're spreading it, filling the pothole.
mhm,
And so that's hard to document. When we get the grader back and we start spending the gravel budget to redo these roads, isn't that when we want pictures of what that looks like
yes,
and have a database built up? So as we're doing this, that's the time to capture what this thing looks like when it has, and document, here's how much gravel, how many truckloads went into this section of road in this picture. That adds to the time it takes to get these jobs done. By the time it takes to take the picture and handle the picture and write down all this stuff. So it's a different mode. We used to do things like this,
mhm,
but everything used to be 10 years ago.
Yeah.
right,
And Jeff has never seen the village operate like this.
No.
right,
So this is big change.
But is part of it also, we know that usually, I know there's always exceptions, but usually the greatest damage happens from the big rainstorms that happens going into summer and summer itself. I
There
know,
was a Patriots Day storm years ago where in April, the ground was still frozen solid. There was
Mhm.
still snow on the ground, and we got rain. So it wasn't like a spring, it was the fact that the ground was still frozen, and the rain started melting and cut. The severity of the cuts was exaggerated by the fact that it was going through frozen ground first, and then eroding the unfrozen ground below it. Madison had very bad damage. And so no, it's not just,
no, it isn't, because 2023, we had 2 times 113 was wiped out pretty bad. In April and then again in July. So is that what you're talking about, that April storm?
so all I'm saying is that they may not happen in January, but they could happen at the end of February
Right,
into March,
right.
April. So
Yeah.
it's a bigger time period than
Complete.
that.
Okay.
Go ahead, what were you
So-
saying?
Okay, so then, I think what you're saying is every time we do work on the roads, to smooth them out, to fix them, to repair them, to lay down gravel, once that work is done, get photos of it. Because sooner or later, another storm's gonna come along and wipe that
Yeah,
out.
and document what it took.
There was a time prior to in the 80s. In the 80s, we had documented 19 intersections that got wiped out every time it rained. And first started with a document saying, where are these that we have to keep fixing? And one by one, we went through them. We got it down to fixing them all. And we went years without having problems in those. but they have to be maintained.
Mhm.
And slowly, these gravel roads go back into situations where they get more vulnerable by the fact that they're not maintained.
maintained.
Ditches aren't maintained, stuff like that. And again, before I came to the meeting, there was a conversation about Appendix J, which is the mitigation thing that the FEMA guy keeps pointing out to us. And I said to them, you know, I haven't even started to read Appendix J about mitigation, where we can get reimbursement money for riprap, for preventative measures with, and they all started to laugh, and they said, if you're gonna read Appendix J, do it right before you try to fall asleep, because it will help you. And they say, wait till you get to the legal section of Appendix J.
Oh, boy.
And they were,
And so even they're saying about that,
Yeah.
their own document, yeah.
they're like, we don't know anybody that's read one of these.
Wow, oh wow.
They sent it to me, but they know people
Yeah,
don't read it.
I think you forwarded that to us, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, I gotta put together just a file for just FEMA
So that's
stuff.
where I am with FEMA is, they keep changing what the goal is here. But I understand why they're doing that, is they're figuring out what happened that they didn't get to witness, and they know they're talking to me, who didn't witness it either. And they're trying to help, it's just that they're trying to help me 2 weeks after I've wasted time doing the last thing they asked me to do. Oh, I think we're getting there. I think we'll find out a lot today after these people finish their day walking around.
Good.
And that's where I'll stop.
Okay, one thing, we're talking about possible fines and stuff like that for people who put debris into ditches. I really don't know where to start this, but another area where there's has been damage happening or potential damage is from the black bears, especially when people leave easy picking garbage out. So the bears get that. That may not cause any damage.
Are you talking in public locations within Idlewild?
Okay,
No, even on private residences, what happens, the bears will just go from one private property owner to another. And I'm just saying, let's say one person stupidly leaves out a trash can that is not bear-proof, the bear gets into it. Well, okay. The bears will then move on to another property and, and sometimes they'll damage other people's property who did everything right. They didn't do anything wrong, it's just the bears damaged the property.
the bears are lured into the area
Yep.
by the aroma
Of people.
of an outdoor
not
trash can, of a
secure.
screened-in porch with a pizza box
Correct.
in the corner waiting for the trash to come. Pizza boxes seem to attract bears better than anything.
No, me
Um,
too.
Well, they love pizza too, but,
So what it's pointing out is that the first person attracts the bears into the area, into their neighbors.
Yeah,
And
and they
now
just
the
go
bears are
from
looking
there.
elsewhere and they're in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying, maybe it will create a warrant, requires a warrant article on our part to create an ordinance or something, but if a property, clearly, like the one you had a photo on, has garbage all strewn over it because they carelessly did not secure their garbage against bears, that maybe some kind of fine could be imposed there, because that, like I said, that risks damage to other people's property, maybe even worse, harm to actual people. I don't know, it's a real problem. It just seems to me,
But again, it sounds like someone's gotta go and document and.
That's where,
you're
that's
taking
where
this and
ordinance
you
by
gotta-
us isn't
you
the
have-
answer, I don't
mean,
think.
Right.
okay,
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the board becoming
I don't know how you
Police
could
enforcement.
possibly
police
do it.
of garbage, you
Right.
know? That's
Yeah.
the property owner's issue, and if their neighbors have issues, then the neighbors need to deal with the authorities
Right.
to get the offending property owner, talked to or discussed or whatever, Fish and Game can get, other people, but not, I don't think this is anything the board should be
Okay, so then I guess this becomes a public service announcement that if
Yes.
anybody's
Yes.
watching,
Yeah.
people have to
Yes.
realize that if you do not secure your garbage properly, the bears are gonna come in and possibly wreak havoc and damage other people's properties. And I bring that up, I've had my security cameras up for a couple of years now, and in the past year, I've seen more nighttime sightings of bears coming through my yard. My garbage is properly secured. The bears have actually tried to get at it, but have failed. But nonetheless, it has created a little bit of damage, nothing too serious, but that could be way more serious than other people. We know of one person who a bear actually went into their house on Interlochen Drive. And a lot of this is due to the fact that the bears know that there's free pickings out there, and that's due to the fact that people are not securing their garbage properly. So please secure your garbage.
Yes.
All right, on to a happier note. I'm just going to put out that we all know that the EPOA puts on a lot of great events for our community, like the ice cream social and the cookouts, among others. But I'd just like to put out a great big thank you to the town of Madison. I went to a lot of the Madison Home Week events this past week, and I was kind of like disappointed I didn't see more Idlewice people there. There were really some terrific events. So next year, be there or be square. And just thank you to the town of Madison, and remember, we're a part of the town of Madison. So that's I'll get off my soapbox.
Before we move off, did you have a chance to communicate to Dawson Excavation about the Riggy manhole cover reading bolts, that it needed a ladder and that the PRV itself leaks?
Oh, I will do that today. I'm sorry, I forgot about that, but I do have the video and the picture of that, and I will
Three
send
things.
send
The
that to
bolts?
Dana. Bolts,
Ladder
right,
And leak.
and the leak.
right. Well, they know
And make it work.
the ladder is on their list. They're waiting to get that. They've told us that they're waiting that.
Okay.
But, so I'll basically, when you come in with the ladder, bolt it down and fix the PRV, the big one. Since we discovered there were actually two PRVs in there,
Right.
right? So the big one we sold.
So you know the hatch itself is not bolted?
Right, it's not bolted down. Yep, I took a picture of that.
Very good.
Okay, so I did have we need to set up the inspection for Grimsell, and now we have the second one that we need to set up an inspection for, so a couple of driveways that we're gonna have to be looking at. So we'll set a time. When do you think you wanted to do such a thing?
If possible today, because I'm
Yeah.
pretty well out of
Okay.
pocket the rest of this week.
Okay.
A number of
Yep, this
issues,
afternoon will be
personal
good.
You
issues.
could even cross paths with the FEMA team walking around.
Might be interesting
Yeah.
to see what they're looking at.
So, Grimsell and Hotwell,
Yep, and
what time you want to meet for that? So we'll recess this meeting and do that kind of stuff.
we'll do it after lunch.
Yes.
Oh. Can we say like 1:30?
Does that work for you?
Yep.
1:30 works for me.
We'll start at Hotwell?
Yeah,
What number?
it's actually Burn, 42 Burn.
Right.
That's the corner of Sarnin and Bird.
Oh,
Yes.
that's an easy one, okay.
Very easy.
Yes, so
Right,
we'll start at
1:30.
that one.
1:30, all right. Okay.
1:30, okay?
Did you want
Uh,
the paperwork back on that, so you have,
Yep.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just
And I'll pick up the one on, for Grimsell as well, because we'll be going up to look at that one. So
I
I'll
have
pop.
nothing on.
No,
Oh,
it's
that's right.
in the office, I'll pick it up.
Okay.
The other thing I had was, because last week, we left to go do our pump house
Walkthrough, yeah.
tour. There were things that didn't get publicly discussed. One of which is that we have successfully gotten into the Department of Revenue portal that Jen was able to update the information, put in the signed, the minutes and the warrant as it was posted with the budgets, and we did get our first, I noticed it this morning, where DRA is doing its first review. So that is something that will be the next step in looking at everything to make sure that everything is properly accounted for with the Department of Revenue, because the next set of forms will be due in September, and those are the ones that will set the tax rate for the year. So those are critical, that they be reviewed many times before they get signed and uploaded into the portal.
Okay.
Well, good job by both of you getting into that.
So,
Well, yeah.
yeah.
No one on the other side helps much with DRA.
No, but now that we're in there, you know,
Okay,
and
so how did the pump house?
the pump house, it went well. A couple
Okay.
things that we will need to work on, and this is whether or not we're gonna be able to, this will be part of probably maybe next week's budget review, where we can look at some of these projects to see whether or not we can do them this year, or if they need to have separate warrant articles. Some of them look very small. Oak pump house, we need to get a louver type vent because
Oh, okay.
it's
Damp in there.
damp in there, you know, so, and there's one at Muddy Beach that we looked at that's, mechanical, so it's attached to,
The controller?
yeah, the controller.
Right.
So that will work, so we can look at what the pricing of something like that would be, whether or not we can do that this year. Muddy Beach, we talked about, possibly putting some wood across the floor or some plastic over the gravel, to help keep, because that runs a humidifier pretty much 24/7. So we talked about possibly getting something like that looked at, and again, I don't know if that's gonna be something that's affordable for this year, or if it's something that we're gonna need to set up for next year. Summit is definitely gonna be outside budget, I think, this year, so it might be something we need to do next year. Some roof work needs to be done, and the insulation that was done 7 years ago, I believe, is all needs to be replaced again. It's falling, it's got,
We're not gonna do fiberglass, we'll blow it in this time.
Yeah. yeah. So so doing foam, or, you know, doing a foam or something like that, I don't know the cost, that's a pretty big building, so I don't know what the cost, that might be its own separate thing that we need to set up for a budget for next year, which might be a warrant article, or, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
But those were the big ones that we needed to take action from this board, or review for this board, from the pump house review. And that's what I had.
Very good. There's a couple of things that we didn't see during that tour, because one of them was the storage room at DPW 2, and I don't think you've ever seen that.
No.
I think you need to see that. You haven't seen that in probably
I
10
haven't.
years.
Yeah,
So you need to see that. I also thought that it would have been a complete waste of time for you to join us on the tour because of how much time we spent at each station. But maybe a quicker tour where you had a visual of each piece of these things that you keep hearing about
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm,
would be useful, and probably before winter time.
Well, generally, like, think about what location probably would cover a lot
And a
of.
glimpse inside, just a
Yeah.
glimpse inside, so you get an
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, I'd be up for that.
Yeah,
But going around looking at all of them, I don't
No,
think.
But we don't need Ian for that because we're supposed to
no,
have the
that's what I'm
coverage.
saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Here's where,
yeah,
here's where Oak Station is.
Yeah.
Take a look inside, see how small this is compared to
some of the other
some of
ones.
the other
Okay,
ones.
gotcha.
They're,
Yeah.
they're really different.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that was mentioned was that the meter on the DPW well doesn't work. Do you remember that? That kind of
Yes.
got glimpsed over, that went over quickly, and that was just
Huh.
in reference to, he was talking about slugs of sodium hydroxide,
Mm-hmm.
and it took me a while to remember after we left that that was changed. A vault was retrofitted into the ground outside the DPW garage, DPW 1. The well is in the 400
Right.
feet from the building.
Yeah.
And the pipe starts to come back towards, and turns up the driveway to enter into the village and deliver water.
oh,
An underground vault was put in, and a meter was put in there.
oh,
And the system of turning the sodium hydroxide on and off got switched from the pumps being turned on, powered on, to the actual sensing of water flowing through the meter. Do you remember this?
Yes.
He didn't explain it this way, and there was no discussion at the time. But he's saying that meter doesn't work.
Yeah, and that could be dangerous. Well, hopefully not, but we
So
could.
I find it really incredible that we found out during the tour that that doesn't work. More incredible is, why didn't previous boards fix that?
Do you say how long it's been down?
He alluded that it's been down for a while, like possibly a couple years.
Two.
so this meter regulates when the pumps are,
No.
It measures the water. It was a way of telling the hydroxide system not, if the controls in the building said to the well underground, stop pumping water. It sends three-phase electricity out to this huge pump that starts pumping 175 gallons a minute out of an aquifer into the system.
yeah,
Well, just because the controller said for the pump to turn on doesn't mean the pump actually works.
oh,
The pump is getting the three-phase power, but the pump is broken, so it's not spinning water. Well, the hydroxide system was told that the controller is telling the pump to turn on, so you
So
start
you
pumping
start-
hydroxide.
oh, geez.
So it's pumping hydroxide, but there's no water flowing. So they switched it from
oh,
relying on the controller of the pumps to decide when the hydroxide, to actually saying, the meter is saying water is flowing. Now you can
Now.
start to do hydroxide. Well, that meter,
doesn't even work.
we're told,
Isn't working.
isn't working, and he said, therefore, the hydroxide system isn't being controlled ideally. And then we move on to the next subject and
And we're only just learning about this.
Yeah. So it is.
replaying everything that we heard during that
Yeah.
tour took
And-
me
And the
2 days.
the other thing right at DPW is that the pH meter hasn't been working
Where?
at DPW 1.
Oh,
The pH meter isn't working. We had one in line so that we knew what the pH of the water as it was leaving DPW
How are we measuring that if it's
is.
not working?
The only way we're getting pH readings now is by the water testing.
Granite State.
Granite State does it,
We used to do it ourselves at Jungfrau.
right? Yeah, when you were doing,
Jude used to do it with a handheld meter, taking a sample
Right.
twice a week. I didn't know there was an inline one installed at.
yeah, there was.
Sounds like an easy way to do it if the
And
inline one is
George
working.
Thomas didn't recommend it because they're unreliable, and here you're telling me I didn't know one existed and
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
Yeah, one existed and it doesn't work.
There you go,
Um,
thank you, George.
Is
So-
it because Granite State continues to do the
Well,
testing?
yeah,
so
they
why-
do the testing, so that's why I think probably nobody ever worried about it.
I see.
But yes, I wasn't thinking of the fact that, yes, we were recommended by somebody that not to do that, you know, so if it's not working, maybe we don't wanna fix that one. But I think we should work on the meter.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we didn't hear any feedback from Nick on any of these pieces of,
Not yet.
Did he
We
say
had-
he was gonna provide feedback
Well,
on the walkthrough?
well, we had him here focusing on the Como zone.
Correct.
He's been focusing on that. That should be another part of my report. I sent an email to Nick saying that I called Briggs Surveying, and his recording says that he's not taking on any new surveying jobs for at least 12 months out.
Yeah, I saw that,
And I called Amoskeag,
and they haven't gotten back to you.
no, and their recording message doesn't identify them, that you even reached the surveying companies, but I left the
Yeah,
message.
so-
Who was the
Yeah.
surveying company that already did that area? Remember, Nick looked at the property over there, and there was some, I think there was some,
He couldn't identify the company,
Yeah.
okay,
he just saw that there were tags.
okay.
So I said to him that maybe we'll use his surveyor. He seems to be able to get him. He was just looking for somebody that had the local information already.
Correct, right.
We're not gonna get that, I don't think. I'd like to keep this moving.
Mhm.
Right.
All right,
Yeah, especially since it might be a warrant article for next year.
yes.
So we wanna keep that moving so that we have everything ready.
And seeing how the only hookups we're talking about seem to be, continue to be Burn and Hotwell,
Yeah,
coincidentally.
Sure does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the area.
yep.
All right, so we did commissioners' reports, correspondence, public appearance. Any public comments at 10:31?
A comment of personal note. Has anybody contacted Eversource or Aspinall?
Asplund.
Esplong,
Yeah. Esplong,
yeah. I can
yeah.
never get it right either.
Anyway, about the trees they chopped down this spring and have not taken away
I
yet.
should, I sent some pictures.
that was on Jeff's list.
Yeah, Jeff was gonna
Jeff
contact.
said he was gonna call them.
All right, I'll wait till next week then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he said he thought he had the contact information for the person.
I sent some pictures of, one of the areas is we're gonna see it this afternoon, is this, where this house is.
Yes.
This driveway we're gonna inspect is where Aspen left some logs and a tree half cut.
Mm-hmm.
And I have pictures of Salins. Which one's?
Salins is
goes up
near
to
you.
Bursting Stock.
Salins is near me.
Yeah, Sargent is near
They
me.
left a log ditch, a log dam in the ditch. I took pictures of that.
Oh,
And
That's
not only
an
that,
uphill,
the plows can hit it also, so.
Yeah.
They can hit mine too.
Mhm.
Tony was concerned.
I'm sure there's quite a few of it.
Okay, that's all.
Okay,
Next week.
yep.
So at 10:33, I'll make a motion that we go into non-public session under 91A to discuss an employment and discuss issues that could possibly accidentally damage someone's reputation.
Mhm. Okay, roll
Second.
call, yep.
How do you vote, Nancy? To go into non-public session?
aye.
Aye.
Four votes, I
Yep.
vote, I also. So thank you, Carol.
All right. Well, it sounds like you're doing driveways this afternoon, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay.